Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Profiling Evil Live. I'm Mike King. I'm in Poland, and we're going to jump in and just see if we can pick up this broadcast when it comes on. So we'll see who's joining in here. Tanil, great to see you. Thank you for jumping on. And we'll give folks a minute to jump in, and we'll chat a little bit about this. And then once the press conference goes live, we'll go live. I've been away for a while, so I thought I'd take advantage of a quiet night in the hotel here in Poland to jump on and say hello. So I'll be watching for your questions here and try to answer those as we go. And would someone please, because I'm using AirPods, just tell me if you can hear me so that I know that my conversation's working. So please let me know if you can hear my voice. And while I'm waiting for some of you to weigh in, I'll say hi to Jane Chu, Diane Phoenix, Melody McAtee, I'm sorry, Debbie Boyd. Let's see. Yes, you can hear. Oh, awesome. So great to see you all. Hope you're doing well. It's been a crazy couple of weeks here in Eastern Europe, but really have enjoyed the experience of working with colleagues over here. And I hope everyone's doing well wherever you are in the world. In fact, let's just take a little peek. It looks like it's going to start. So let's jump in here. Oh, it flickered. Maybe it's not ready to start. There we go.
Thank you for joining us. Sorry about the audio issue. I'm Dr. Brent Blue, Teton County, Wyoming coroner. After a detailed investigation by our forensic pathologist, our anthropologist, and local law enforcement, with assistance from the FBI, the Teton County Coroner's Office is following the following verdict. In the manner of death of Gabrielle Lenora Petito, we find the cause and manner to be death by strangulation, and manner is homicide. By Wyoming state statute, only the cause and manner of death are released. Their autopsy findings and photographs and that sort of material is not released by state statute. And I'll be glad to entertain some questions at this time.
Hi, Brian. This is Alex with the News and Guide. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm curious whether you're able to pinpoint a date of death and when, and if you know whether or when Gabby's remains will be returned to her family.
The remains have been returned to the mortuary here, and the mortuary is dealing with the family at this time as far as the disposition of the remains. As far as the time of death, we are estimating 3 to 4 weeks from the time that the body was found. That is actually determined more by law enforcement folks than than our office.
Chris, Vivian, you are able to ask your question.
What's the question? I didn't hear a question.
Chris, I believe that you are muted. If you can unmute yourself.
Okay, it's John Walsh from In Pursuit with John Walsh on Discovery ID. Dr. Blue, thank you for your time. I think everybody in the world believes that Brian Laundrie killed Gabby. With your extensive work on the body, are you sure that it's Brian Laundrie? And will the FBI issue a nationwide homicide warrant now that they know the cause of death?
We are only tasked with the determination of cause and manner of death. Who committed the homicide is up to law enforcement, and I cannot answer the question about the FBI. You would have to contact them.
Jeremy Kopus, you are now allowed to ask your question.
Yes, hello, doctor. If you could, please, can you comment on any other bruising, maybe on the body that possibly was healing, possibly older bruises or cuts that might have been healing over the last couple of weeks before her passing?
By Wyoming state statute, no other information about the autopsy is released, just the cause of death.
Hi there, this is Heather Lee, a reporter at ABC Action News in Tampa, Florida. I just wanted to know if you could explain why it took about a month for this process to finish. I think a lot of people were hoping that they would learn this information sooner. So I just think if you could just explain the process and why it took a month.
Well, the main reason was that we were very exacting in our examination and the detail by which that examination was done. We were waiting for various specialists to come in and help us with this investigation. We were waiting on toxicology to be returned, and it was just a matter of making sure we had everything right.
Thank you.
Is there another question?
Brian Enton. I believe you're unmuted right now. Okay. Steve Fabian.
Yes, hi, doctor. How are you? I am curious if any DNA samples were taken from Gabby's remains, and also if the body was intact, are you able to tell us the condition of Gabby's remains?
I can tell you the DNA samples were taken by law enforcement, and all I can tell you about remains is that the body was outside for 3 to 4 weeks.
Chris Vivian, do you have your hand up?
Was that a question? I didn't hear the question there.
Question.
Dr. Blue,
Yes.
it's John Walsh again from In Pursuit with John Walsh. You will probably be the most important witness at the trial. And I asked you before how confident you feel that Brian Laundrie, and they use the semantics. He was a person of interest. I'm old school. He was the only suspect ever. And I just wonder, you're going to be the most important guy at the trial, probably. Do you have any doubts it's Brian Laundrie?
I can't make any comment about any suspects because we are not involved in that part of the investigation. We are only involved in the investigation of the body of the deceased. So who committed the homicide is really to be determined by law enforcement.
Right, but I thank you for your hard work. And I always say in so many cases I've been involved in, let the pathologist and the coroner do their work no matter how long it takes. So I think you've probably done a really good job on this case. Thank you for your time.
Hey there, doctor. This is Rochelle Aline with ABC Action News in Tampa. Just a quick question. Can you kind of walk us through the process to how you arrived at this specific manner of death?
In the state of Wyoming, there are 4 possibilities for the manner of death. They are homicide, suicide, accident, and natural. And those are the four choices. When we do an investigation, we look at the crime scene or the scene of the death, the scene of the body, the condition of the body, and findings at autopsy and toxicology. And that is how we arrive at the manner of death. So it really depends on lots of different circumstances.
Dr. Stephen Fabian again from Inside Edition. Can you tell us if the body was buried when it was discovered, or if the body was on the surface?
I can't tell you that. That's would be something you'd have to ask the FBI, because we're not allowed to release that information.
Kelly Vaughn. Do you have a question, Kelly Vaughn? We have Brian Enting in the chat who has a question. What's your question, Brian? Was there any impact on her body from weather or wild animals in the national park?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Was there any impact on her body from weather or wild animals in the national park?
All I can really comment about that is that her body was outside in the wilderness for 3 to 4 weeks.
KSL assignment, you are unmuted. KSL assignment.
Hello, Dan Rascone here from KSL TV in Salt Lake. Dr. Blue, can you tell us at all whether or not, was it believed that she was murdered there at that location, or is it any indication that her body was drugged there or taken there, or can you give us any indication there?
I can't comment on that. That would be something you'd have to speak with the law enforcement or the FBI.
Matthew Sella. Matthew Sella, do you have a question?
Hey, Dr. Blue. It's actually Jimmy from dailymail.com in New York here. What were the results of the toxicology reports? And is there any suggestion that Gabby had any drugs in her system? And if so, what were they?
The results of the toxicology are not public knowledge by Wyoming Institute, so I can't comment about that.
Thank you.
We have a question from the chat. Was Gabby Petito pregnant?
She was not pregnant.
Thomas Taupe.
Hi, doctor. My question, did you seek the advice of a forensic entomologist or forensic botanist during the course of your investigation?
The FBI has sent materials to a forensic entomologist.
WPBF 25 News.
Hi, doctor. This is Terry Parker from WPBF in Palm Beach County, Florida. I'm wondering, if you said you were very thorough in this autopsy and examination, could you give us an example of the type of test and analysis as you performed?
This autopsy included a whole body CAT scan, a examination by a forensic pathologist, an examination by a forensic anthropologist, and toxicology evaluation. So we pretty much covered all the bases.
Jeremy Kopis.
Yes, doctor, thank you for taking the question again. You mentioned that strangulation is the cause of death. Can you talk about how you came to that conclusion?
I cannot. That is part of the autopsy findings and is not discoverable by Wyoming statute.
Was there any other cause of death that was a possibility in this case?
Well, we look at all causes, all possibilities when we try to determine cause of death, but this is the cause of death that we determined.
I have a question from chat. It is, was the manner of death obvious? Strangulation marks, bones, injured neck.
Nothing is obvious in a situation like this. So a detailed analysis was used both to determine manner and cause of death. I can't go into details on how we made those decisions.
Kristen Thorne.
Yes, hi, Dr. Kristen Thorne with WABC in New York. Could you just please repeat about how long you believe the body was out there? Unfortunately, the last time you spoke, we just didn't get a good film shot of you saying that. Would you mind repeating that?
Our initial determination is the body was in the wilderness for 3 to 4 weeks.
Thank you.
Jorge Fitzgibbon. You have to unmute. I believe you're still muted.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Dr. Blue. Relating back to the date of death, is there a date listed on the death certificate?
The death certificate has not been completed at this time, and the death certificates of the state of Wyoming allow for approximate dates and variability in those dates. So I doubt, well, there will not be an exact date of death on the death certificate.
Eileen with News 12.
Hi, doctor. This is Eileen LaPalmer from News 12. We sort of asked it a little bit, but is there a way that you can explain how you know that it was strangulation? Sometimes I know that a hyoid bone could be missing. Is that something that you discovered in this case?
I can't comment on that because it would be a finding of the autopsy. And as I stated before, in the state of Wyoming, the autopsy results are not public knowledge.
So then you can't clarify whether it was manual strangulation or with an item, correct?
That's correct.
Michael Ruiz.
Thanks for making time for us, doctor. Was the entire examination conducted at your lab in Jackson, or was Gabby Petito's body shipped to another facility?
The examination was done entirely at our board in Teton County, Wyoming.
Anna Gregorio.
Gregorio. It's actually Ashley Banfield with News Nation. Doctor, thank you for taking the time today. Can I ask you if from the very beginning of your process, was it obvious that the cause, not the manner, that the cause was strangulation and that you just needed this time to prove it out? Or were you completely unaware from the beginning what the cause of death was for Gabby Petito and had to resolve through a number of puzzle solving manners and other experts to arrive at that final cause determination?
In a situation like this, nothing is obvious. And so the cause of death required investigation.
We have a William Walke.
Hey there, Dr. Blue, my name is Will. I'm from KHOL Jacksonville Community Radio here in Jackson. You're a small town coroner here in Western Wyoming. This case got so much national attention, as we can see right now. Can you speak on what it was like doing your job with such a big spotlight on you? Thanks.
Well, it was quite the media circus and continues to be. Unfortunately, this is only one of many deaths around the country of people who are involved in domestic violence. And it's unfortunate that these other deaths do not get as much coverage as this one. I'm assuming that because the deceased was a blogger, that this received more coverage than others. But there are a lot of both men and women who have lost their lives that aren't covered with this kind of media attention.
Francis DeFiore.
Yes, hello. This is Francis DeFiore from the Port Charlotte Sun. I just want to go back to my previous question, although I imagine your response. Is there anything you can tell us about how exactly you determined it was a 3 to 4 week period before death?
I can't go into that kind of information at this time.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Why don't we take one more question then?
We have the Snack Squad.
Hey, this is Andrew Mercado from Mercado Media. Could you go over the length of time the autopsy report took? And thank you for your time, Dr. Blue.
Well, the length of time was involved in the sense that we received a report from the investigating and examining forensic pathologist. We had a report done by our anthropologist, and we had toxicology studies that were done in addition to the report from the radiologic studies. So all these came together, and that's what took time for us to complete this investigation.
Hi, doctor. Could you speak to the state of decomposition, and did that at all hinder your investigation?
No, I can't comment on that.
Dr. Blue, would you like to take any more questions?
Unless there's other specific questions that haven't been answered already, why don't we close this? And thank you all very much for your participation. And I can tell you that I will not be answering any other detailed questions about the autopsy. As I said, state statute prevents us from doing that. So contacting me by email and phone is not going to reveal any additional information. But thank you for your time, and I appreciate your interest.
Dr. Blue, I have one more question. Is there a way to determine if this was accidental or deliberate?
You mean in the sense of a homicide?
Yes.
That would be up to law enforcement to make that determination.
Great, thank you.
Again, thank you all very much for your time.
Oh, wow. There you go. Actually, he handled that very professionally, and I've been watching some of your comments. Some of you are quite frustrated that he wasn't revealing more information, and frankly, he cannot reveal more information without really stepping out of line. But let me read some of your questions, and let's see if we can answer a few things, and then go through some of the notes that I have. Again, I'm calling in from Poland this evening, and last night we had to cancel choir practice because I didn't have a very good internet connection. Tonight, thanks to the Hilton in Krakow, I was able to get the boardroom and a little better internet connection because I'm going to be doing court TV in a few hours. So let's look and see what kind of questions you have. And again, thank you everyone for jumping on. And if you haven't subscribed, maybe consider hitting that like and the subscribe button. That's always helpful for us. And and then I'll start watching for some questions and see if we can answer a couple of things that I thought were really interesting. Number one, I was pleased to see, and how cool for all of us to be able to sit in on the press conference with um, some of the big guns. I mean, Ashley Banfield, John Walsh weighing in, others weighing in. That was great for us to be able to kind of witness that firsthand. There was a question that just popped up that I want to respond to because I was thinking a lot about it and actually wrote some notes on it. Let's see. Here we go. Uh, Helen Girl says, Mike, you mentioned domestic violence. Is that a clue? And let me tell you, as soon as I heard that, Helen Girl, I also wrote a note. The coroner said the death, he was referring to other murder cases going on in the United States, but he clearly called out domestic violence. So I had the same question. Are they pointing out and pointing at Brian Laundrie, saying domestic violence? Because, often when you look at this from a profiler's perspective, what you're as interested in are things that are not said, not necessarily things that are being said. And I think it's really intriguing that he mentioned it in that way. I don't know. I hope he didn't slip up, but that makes me think that maybe they're eliminating the possibility that this was a stranger related assault, which I'm sure will be a defense if this ever goes to the point of making it to trial. So, what a interesting question and response, and thanks for picking that up. And I hope that I answered that in a way that made sense. Ginger Ninja says it takes a while to strangle someone. Can't imagine what was going through her mind. Yeah, I mean, strangulation is a very personal kind of homicide, and I've seen a lot of these kinds of cases, and it is very indicative. The question becomes: was she strangled facing her, which is incredibly personal, or was it with some kind of ligature, a strap around the neck, a cord, something like that, and done from behind? All of those become such important behavioral aspects in this investigation, and it led me to a couple of questions that I would hope he would never answer in a forum like this, but that are swinging through my brain. And that was number one: what clothing was recovered at the time that Gabby's body was recovered? What was the state of the clothing? Was it pushed up? Was it indicative of any kind of other kind of assault, like a sexual assault? Was she wearing shoes? Did it look like she was trying to escape from an area and was chased down, or were they hiking and it just happened? All of these become really important. Were there other injuries that would be significant as you look at this in totality? I know that many of you have popped up that, well, the hyoid bone must be broken. Well, that's the hyoid bone is this little V-shaped bone right here in the neck. And in strangulation cases, it's not a really strong set of cartilage that holds that in place. And so it can be dislodged when there's manual manipulation around the neck like that. So that's kind of an interesting question. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling here, so I'll go back and see if I can see a couple of questions. And thanks everybody for jumping on. I hope that this was something that was worthwhile to you to do. Again, I'm in Poland. I saw folks from the Netherlands, from throughout Europe. It's 9 o'clock at night here in Poland, and we have I think, and I'm hoping, a good internet connection for all of you. Let's see. Who else could have done it, Courtney, if it wasn't Brian? They didn't know anyone else out there. So this is really an interesting question and will certainly be part of whatever defense, if Brian is ever brought to trial, is that somebody else did it. So we have to really think about the personal nature of that assault, and we have to learn. But again, you got to look at the behavior in this case. This guy didn't call up Gabby's parents, didn't call his parents and say, "Oh my gosh, Gabby went for a walk alone and never came back. So I drove her van back here and I'm not telling anybody. And I used her credit card." All of these other things. I mean, we have to consider the behavior, and it's weighing so heavily in favor of looking at Brian Laundrie as the solid suspect. And now, with what the doctor said, that again was really interesting. The timeline kind of fits what we've been thinking all along. Again, in my hometown was the last photograph that we know of Gabby, where she was taken. There was a photograph taken of her in front of the Monarch display. That's about 10 minutes from my home. And we're actually going to be, I think Tim from the back office is going to be knocking out a video to talk about that area. I know that the Real Time Crime Center collected information on this case and provided it to folks in Florida. So we know that Brian and Gabby both were there on the 25th. And then, of course, they make it up. They were seen in a restaurant. The date is about the 27th to the 29th that they believe that this homicide would have occurred. And then, of course, Brian Laundrie returns home on September 1st without Gabby. And again, this is I think I plotted this out like a 35-hour drive. So it wasn't done in just a few hours and he was home. It had to take some days and some planning. And of course, now we know through information that's leaked out that Gabby's credit cards were used on en route getting home. Then we see, I think it was about the 19th. I think someone even said the 19th in the chat, and I apologize because I don't have glasses on. But the 19th to 21st is when Gabby's body is recovered during the search effort. And the coroner is saying that it's about 2 to 4 weeks that the body was out and in open terrain where she was exposed. So that fits perfectly, that 3-week window of time from September 1st or August 27, 28 to September 19th, 3 weeks dead center in that 2 to 4 week period of time that the coroner is talking about. And you know what? I've seen a few of you saying that, hey, this coroner, is kind of from Podunk Town or something like that. This guy is a pro. He's a doctor. He's been to medical school. He knows what he's doing. And in addition, he let us know that he brought in forensic anthropologists and other experts to look, and they'll continue to study the tissue on that. So, hey, Nettie, thank you so much. Did the coroner slip and go beyond homicide to identify this as domestic violence? Well, you can't really go beyond homicide because that's the biggie. But he made an interesting omission if he didn't make something other than that. And I think a few of you caught that. And that was that he said, hey, there are lots of domestic violence homicides that occur in our country, and this one has captured a lot of attention. So that was really interesting. But domestic violence doesn't trump homicide. But this certainly, in my opinion, rules out stranger if his comment about domestic violence is specific to this particular case. So that becomes really important. Let's see here. Hey, thanks everybody for jumping on. I hope you're all having a great day in the States. Those of you that are here in Europe or around other places of the world, that you're enjoying your evening. Folks, I'm dialing in from Poland tonight. I've been over in Eastern Europe for a couple of weeks, have a few more weeks to go before I get home. I'm here on business working with law enforcement and emergency leaders throughout the region, and then doing a little bit of R&R. So we'll keep at this. And please, if you're not a subscriber please consider subscribing and make sure you're hitting that, mashing that like button. That really helps us. So let me look here. And man, I'll tell you, I'm doing this without the back office. I'm doing it from Eastern Europe. I'm doing it. So, so I hope you're cutting me some slack if anything goofy's happening here. Linda Sheldon, I agree with you. This is such a heartbreaking case. And gosh, I have personally visited with Gabby's family, did in the first weeks. In fact, I was on the phone with her stepfather who was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and there obviously to identify Gabby's body. And oh my goodness, what an amazing family, and how cool it is that even with a broken relationship with mom and dad, they never lost sight of Gabby. They remained friends, and their spouses remain friends, and they're yoked together on this thing. So something to be really complimented. And I pray that it doesn't in some way destroy what they have. I hope that it becomes a unifier for them. Let's see. Coroner said 3 to 4 weeks, not 2 to 3 weeks. Maybe I missed that. The comments are coming in so quick. I missed who said that. So if I misstated, please just, I was writing notes as fast as I could. Now remember, in a homicide investigation, there are 4 outcomes that need to be considered. There's certainly the biggie, homicide, and this thing was ruled a homicide early on. So they knew early on that this was a homicide. Next is a natural occurrence. She went out, hurt her ankle, died of exposure from the cold temperatures or something like that. Well, that isn't the case. That it was an accident. She was hiking and fell off a cliff. Not the case. That it was a suicide. That's the third kind of death investigation that we have. And this isn't a suicide. And clearly now they're saying that she died by strangulation. So somehow, either by a ligature, something wrapped around the neck, like this, or manual strangulation, getting the hands on, which is very personal and very intense. And that's why it's so important that we learn down the road at the appropriate time whether she was strangled from behind. Again, think about this, from behind, somebody comes up behind, or if it's someone and they're looking right at the individual, the victim, and strangling them face to face, manual strangulation, which is the fourth way, homicide. And you know what? Whoever said that, you're right. I went up and found my other note. The body was outside, according to the coroner, for 3 to 4 weeks. So we know that Brian Laundrie was home by September 1st. The body was discovered 3 weeks later. So fits perfectly within that scenario. So, wow, thank you, The Breeze. Really appreciate you weighing in with that super chat and that kind comment. Folks, I'm dialing in from Poland. The back office is doing their day jobs, so they're not available to help. And I'm trying to read questions with my glasses sitting up in my hotel room. So we'll see how this goes. Lisa Hogan, I agree with you. This is very tragic. Let's see. Let's see. Patty B. I've been to Czechoslovakia, East Berlin, and all over Germany. Ausgezeichnet, Patty. Let's see. And by the way, I have just enjoyed so much after a year and a half of not traveling, and that's what I do for my job. I work with law enforcement all around the world, and it has been such an honor to get back in the trenches and hear the kinds of challenges that they're facing in their communities around the world. And as different as we are, folks, we are very much the same. We care about the same things. And hopefully, if you didn't catch it, go back and watch my video from a few nights ago from Latvia. I was there looking at a serial killer case while I was in town and happened to visit with a number of Profiling Evil family members who came over to get books signed and some other things, and we just had a blast chatting and talking about all kinds of things. Barb Nomron, good to see you. It's no surprise since Brian and Gabby have been known to attack each other's faces. It only escalates in these DV situations. You know what? That's a really interesting point that I would like to bring out, Barb, and thank you, is that, folks, if you or anyone you know is involved in a domestic violence situation, please get them to a medical or mental health provider as quickly as possible to talk through the challenge that they're facing and get help. These things do not get better on their own. It seems like they only get worse. And if you go back and watch some of our videos, we've been so fortunate to have some of the world's best. Dr. Jane Monkton, who talked about the 8 stages to domestic violence homicide. Dr. Judy Ho, who's been on to talk about domestic violence homicide. This is a serious problem, and it doesn't get better on its own. You need to have professional help. And if you think about it, I mean, the goal of any domestic abuser is to separate the victim from their support system, to get them in a position that they can challenge their thought processes, to get them in a position where they can continue to control them and manipulate them. These situations don't get better. And it is a horrible position for those of you who end up on the outside looking in, children or loved ones, other family members, because anything you say, they're going to almost always take as a defensive and fight against you on the efforts that you make to try to change what's going on. But you got to stay vigilant. You got to keep hoping that they'll hear something that makes sense and that they will figure out how to get the help that they need. So Deb Smith says, I didn't hear the report. Did the coroner say it was ligature or by hand? Great question. Did not say. And again, some of you were a little frustrated with that coroner. I think he did a great job. I mean, he gave us information without compromising things that would be really important. Think about this. If in fact they identify someone who, let's say, walks in and says, "Hey, I committed this homicide. Tell me how you did it." Well, if this has all been released in a public forum like this, people can regurgitate what they've read, but only intimate things that the victim and the offender would know. And in this case, the victim can't repeat other than their body is their testimony. Those are the kinds of things that become the most important piece of these criminal investigations. So Triple V and me, thank you so much for that super sticker. Really nice. I hope it's okay to share this, Natasha. You are a DV survivor, and congratulations. Let me look through here again. Thanks everybody again. Gosh, I really missed not getting on choir practice last night, and I'm sorry I missed it, but the internet connection wasn't great. Again, we just listened to the Teton County coroner talking about the autopsy findings in the Gabby Petito homicide investigation. Some have speculated that Gabby's hyoid was broken. That has not been released. Might be easy to theorize that, but again, you know me, I don't do that. So what we do know is that she died by strangulation. That's official. It came from the coroner. She died by strangulation, but we don't know if it was ligature strangulation. Again, I'm going to go through this: ligature or manual strangulation. So that will be interesting to see. Let's see, Munchkin. Would there be a choice of cause of death being undetermined? No, yeah, sure. Certainly, there could be an undetermined cause of death. Yeah, and Alfonso, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And down in Albuquerque, gosh, I had the opportunity of working with Greg Cooper on a couple of A&E specials on the serial killers in Albuquerque, and I did a couple videos on that some time ago. So you are in an area where there also are lots of challenges. Let's see. So, Deb Smith, do you think the family will ask for the death penalty to be taken off the table? Deb, I don't know which family. I mean, Brian's family, if he ends up being the suspect that is charged in the case, and remember, he's only a person of interest, uh, then I'm certain that the defendant side of the house would love to not have the death penalty as part of this. Uh, Victims, it'll be interesting to see what the family does. I guess the thing that is so um, aggravating in this case, and aggravating isn't just an emotion. Aggravating is a legal term that says it's the highest level. The aggravating factors in this case are that if in fact Brian Laundrie is found to be the suspect and charged with this homicide, you got to keep going back to the question of why does he drive home? Why doesn't he tell anybody? Why is he using her credit card? Why is he driving her van? Why isn't he helping police? Why did he lawyer up? Why did he disappear? I mean, holy cow. So many frustrating things. So let's see. Sandy's asking, would Bryant's parents have been given advanced knowledge of this from this public disclosure? I don't know if I quite understand, Sandy, what you're asking. I would think that Gabby's parents knew the outcome of the autopsy at this level. They probably don't know any more than we know at this level before it went public than all of us hearing it for the first time. So that will be interesting. I also wanted to mention one other note that I made, which is going to become really significant in this case, in my opinion. And that is, there are two crime scenes that we need to think about in this particular case. And you could go back and watch some of my other videos on crime scenes. But the two crime scenes that we need to be concerned about are the crime scene, the place where the actual crime occurred, and then the disposal site. So we may find, if when this is all said and done, that Gabby was killed right on the spot where her body was recovered. That would be the crime scene and disposal site in one place. Now, if it's a stranger abduction, it could even be the initial contact site. But if she was in fact killed somewhere else, let's say in the van or near that area, and then was taken to that area and displayed because it was a nicer, more peaceful place. And I'm only telling you words I've heard come out of suspects' mouths when they describe why they dump a body in places that they decide to dump them. Then we would have a crime scene and a disposal site, and each of them become really important crime scenes, and each give us a real indication and an understanding of the offender's behavior. Their reason for picking that area tells us a lot about who they are and what they're thinking, kind of how their motor's running as this thing goes. So, Mama D, hey, thanks so much for that super sticker. That's very kind, and again, I really appreciate it. Steve Yeager says the death penalty allows too many ways to appeal, uses taxpayer money. Life without parole means criminal has to pay for appeals, and the appeal must have merit. Steve, that's interesting. I hope that in this process, no one is allowing dollars to drive decision making in what should or shouldn't happen. If they can prove that there are aggravating circumstances, pre planning, methodical steps elements of the crime that meet a capital crime, then I would hope that they go for capital crime. And frankly, I'm a little embarrassed, folks. I haven't even checked Wyoming to see what the status of the death penalty is, but thinking it's Wyoming, I suspect that the death penalty is still on the table there. So I'll watch and see if anyone weighs in there. Wendy Henschel is theorizing that he killed her in the van and then dumped her where she was found. Interesting, Wendy. I mean, these are the kinds of questions that really we want to ask and learn as much about as we can, because this is going to tell us the behavior and will frankly tell us whether this is a capital case. And a capital case, folks, means that the death penalty can be instituted, or this swings over to a life without parole or a second degree homicide or a negligent homicide. There are lots of things left on the table, but it's pretty hard to jump to a negligent homicide when there's strangulation. That's a pretty tough jump. So anyway, let's see. Sherilyn Schaffner says, I'm not the seasoned investigator. You're not the old guy that I am, Sherilyn, but the broken hyoid would have fit the first clue to the homicide the way they called it so fast. There you go, internet in Poland, huh? So I want to go back to that, and please let me know if you can hear me, folks, and you can see me again. Somehow I'm hoping I'm back on now, and I've left Sherilyn's question. Let's see if I am back in. Okay, journey to a miracle. It is a miracle. Thank you. Man, this is where I really miss the back office when I'm on my own. So the question is, that because they called it a homicide so quickly, Sherilyn is kind of theorizing that it might be because they saw a broken hyoid bone. Again, the hyoid bone, folks, is this bone right here. Your Adam's apple might be the best way. But here's the flip side of that, Sherilyn. And thanks, Bev, and everyone else who let me know I'm back on. The flip side of that is we don't know what other evidence there may be. There may be a ligature there, which would certainly suggest homicide. There may be petechiae, blood vessels that are breaking in the eyes and in the eyelids, and other kinds of evidence. So there are other indicators in homicide cases that could lead investigators to say there was a traumatic event, and so we have to kind of look at that too. So I hope that answered that question. Angela Mum is saying it's heartbreaking to think Gabby's folks are having to listen to this, and yeah, I agree. Della, I wonder what will take place in front of Brian's house. Oh my goodness, hasn't that been tragic? Folks, I don't know if I have any influence on any of you. Don't go stand in front of these folks' house and harass them. Let police do their work and just take the high road. I know it's so heart-wrenching and frustrating, but gosh, we need to take the high road. Natasha M, thank you so much. What do you think of the couple in Moab? Do you think there's any connection? And thank you, Natasha, for subscribing and sticking with the channel. So the sheriff has clarified there is no connection. Again, how do you have so many coincidences and not keep saying what if? So I'm with you. I'm going to continue to say what if, but right now, you know me, I stick with official releases, and the sheriff is saying no connection, but we haven't heard from him for a couple weeks now. And folks, that sheriff is a good investigator. I can tell you that because I personally have worked homicide cases with him when I was with the Attorney General's office doing unsolved murders in the state. And he is a good investigator. So we'll just have to watch and see what goes on there. So, hey, thanks for being on, folks. I'm in Latvia. Got folks from all over the world. Oh no, I'm not in Latvia. I was in Latvia last week. I'm in Poland right now. Was in Warsaw for a few days. I jumped in a car and I drove down. And by the way, the driving through Poland, the countryside is beautiful, and thankfully it's all on the right side of the road. So, but I'm now in Krakow, and I'll be heading to Auschwitz tomorrow, and then on to Ulamek and a few other places, heading my way into Czech Republic to do some things. So let's see here. Such kind things that you folks are saying for this poor family, and you know, I got a text message from Jim a couple of days ago, just saying to say thank you to everybody. This is Gabby's stepfather. What a tough thing that that entire family is going through, and gosh, hearts break for them. Deb Smith is saying, won't it be a federal case? The interesting thing, Deb, is it looks like the county is handling it at this point, and then the FBI has stepped in to support them. So it will be interesting because we know that the charges for the credit card are federal charges. But again, we don't have a homicide suspect yet. There's a person of interest, and I think, come on, what's the difference? But we'll see what happens there. Let's see. Sylvia asks, how long before the FBI issue a warrant for Brian, being this is a murder? Well, so that's a really interesting and very insightful question, Sylvie, because up until today, just a few moments ago, we didn't have a cause of death. Now that we may see a warrant actually issued. So we're going to watch that thing kind of unfold. And this may unfold from a person of interest to a suspect in a case. But again, this is all alleged at this point, and we're going to have to watch how this shakes out. But really interesting. And then when the coroner tonight or today for you tipped his hand or at least made a statement that created lots of questions, talking about other domestic violence homicides in the United States, it caused a lot of you to think immediately, is this a domestic violence homicide? Strangulation is a personal homicide. Don't mistake that. But you got to keep in the back of your mind that there could be an argument, and will definitely be an argument if for instance, Brian Laundrie is charged with homicide, that it was somebody else. This is a great whodunit that we can't figure out who that is. And so if they're saying it's domestic violence in nature, that kind of takes it away from the stranger assault and a murder committed by somebody on the outside. Let's see here. Latressa, do you think that the message with her grandfather's name Stan was a call for help? Man, so that's an interesting question. Either a call for help or him just trying to fabricate things to make it look like she's still engaged and sending out and not thinking. And what we see sometime, if in fact this was all something that was his doing and he had planned all of this, we often see with these offenders that things that start out as an organized crime, you know, I planned it out, I thought through everything that's going to happen, when all of a sudden the reality hits and they're dealing with, how am I going to get rid of a body? How am I going to clean up? How am I going to avoid DNA being transferred? All of a sudden, things start getting a little more difficult. Maybe in the course of the homicide, it doesn't go as easy as possible. And I'll tell you, sadly, I've watched homicides happen on videotape. It is really hard to kill somebody. And I hope nobody ever does that, by the way. But this is not television stuff where it's done really easily and cleanly. killing people is really hard. And the videos that I've watched where people have taken life and then we've used that video later captured to interrogate or whatever, it is tough. And what happens is these organized minds, when things don't work out the way they fantasized, become disorganized and they really fall apart. And that's where they start making mistakes. So even the perfect crime can have mistakes that law enforcement can capitalize on in the event that they can go back and really start to place the thing together. So, um, for whatever that's worth, that's my thought on that anyway. Um, let's see. I want to just go for a few minutes more. If any of you have any questions that I'm seeing a lot of you are talking back and forth. There was just a lot of really good conversation going in here. And thanks everybody for keeping this on a high plane and keeping it constructive. And we have a lot of folks that are probably new to Profiling Evil. Would you please consider hitting the subscribe button and ring the bell so you get all those notifications? I'm going to come out tomorrow, probably after I leave Auschwitz, with a video about the Daybell updates and a couple of things that have been kind of bugging me there that I wanted to share. And I'm hoping next week that we'll be back on track. Also, for all of you who might be interested, I think I'm doing court TV tonight, although I'm waiting. It's 4 o'clock in the morning for me here, and I told them that I might take a pass if they don't mind. And next week, I believe a really neat episode will be on Dr. Phil. And I know that some folks that I was on the Dr. Phil show with a few weeks ago taping are in the chat tonight. We'll be talking about a case that I think you're going to just make sure you're going to want to hit. And I want to shout out, if you didn't see my little video with Dr. Phil, he has just been so good to me. And when I called him about this particular case and asked him if he would take it, they just jumped on it. And it was so fun to be there with the family of a murder victim and one you'll want to take. So anyway, let's see, folks. From Poland, I just want to say thank you so much for all your support of Profiling Evil. Hit the like and the subscribe button and ring the bell. And to all of you who jumped in tonight with no notice, thanks a lot. Let's just keep doing this, and I'll jump back on in a couple of days if it makes sense. Otherwise, I'll plan on seeing you at choir practice next week. I think I'll be in Dresden, Germany, meeting there. So that'll be kind of a fun night. We'll eat some Sauberkeiten and we'll have a little chat. And to all our friends in Germany, maybe we can find time to get together and say hello. Thanks. Go to profilingevil.com. Check out the story maps, profilingevil.com. And from Poland to all of you in all the different parts of the world that you're tuning in from tonight, thanks. Have a great night.